All right, as promised, today we're back in the Lutz, Florida area, just north of Tampa, and we're gonna do some pros and cons of living in this area. Here we go. I'm Sam, and welcome to the Living in Tampa, Florida channel, where every single week we release videos about what it's like to live, work, play, and move to the Tampa, Florida area. If that's something you want to follow along with, don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. I am also a licensed realtor in the state of Florida, so if you have any real estate specific questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. My phone number and email are right there on the screen. I would love to connect with you. All right, Lutz, Florida is an area I actually get asked about quite a bit. It is just north of Tampa, kind of up here by New Tampa, Wesley Chapel, Land O'Lakes. It's kind of in the mix of all of those areas. And it's really kind of like a rural suburban area. There are a lot of communities and developments, but there are a lot of rural areas as well. I'm actually in one of the more rural areas right now just to shoot this video. Some neighbor's dog just like walked up to me and is just hanging out here with me. And there are a lot of little pockets like this with houses that were built in like the 60s and 70s with really big lots. And these areas are really interesting and unique. One thing to keep in mind about these like little rural pockets is they're often on well water and septic tanks. And that's really common around here and can work just fine, but that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at this area. Lutz has about 20,000 people in the area, but it is surrounded by a few suburbs and the city of Tampa to the south and southeast. So it's not just the 20,000 population that you feel, it feels quite a bit bigger and it feels like part of Tampa, just on the outskirts of Tampa, with downtown only being about 15 miles away and the airport being very similar to that. The main reason people ask me about Lutz is because of the schools. Steinbrenner High School specifically is one of the best high schools in the area, and people often ask how they can get in that school district. Often they lean toward a couple specific communities like Cheval, these big gated communities, but there are a lot of other areas in the Lutz area that go to that high school. And Lutz is kind of an interesting place because it's part of an unincorporated area. So part of it is in Hillsborough County, part of it is in Pasco County, and the taxes reflect those differences as well. And that also shows how connected these areas are. A lot of people will even say Pasco's not part of the Tampa area, but here you have one of these towns that touches Tampa and overlaps into Pasco County, just showing that it is a very connected area across these three counties of Hillsborough, Pasco, and then Pinellas over on the beach side. Let's get into some of the pros and cons. Pro number one is schools. The Lutz schools are very good. You know, Steinbrenner High School is a 7 out of 10 on greatschools.com. And Lutz Preparatory School is the common pre-K through 5th school that's really highly reviewed. And there are other schools around the area, McKittrick Elementary and all kinds of schools like that are really good. And kind of once an area has good schools, it keeps having good schools because the community expects it, the community requires it. So a lot of people that live in the area do really live here for those schools, and a lot of people moving to the area like you might be interested in this area just because of the schools. Maybe not just because. We'll get to a couple other factors of why you might be interested in the area as well. All right, pro number two, there are a lot of newer houses. There are a lot of communities that were built in the 80s and 90s, and a lot of those homes have been updated. There are some that are newer than that, and there are a lot that are older than that, but you do have the option to find something a little bit newer that's updated, or a little older that's updated, or quite new. There's not a lot of new construction going on in Lutz because of the area preservation. There's a lot of open space and there's a lot of natural things, natural landscaping in the area. And they are preserving a lot of that open space, a lot of those clusters of cypress trees and pine trees. And that actually gives this area a really unique feel and isn't something you want to tear down to build houses unless you really, really have to. There are plenty of areas to build houses like Long Lake Ranch and places like that, where that's a big community, but there's something special about all of this natural stuff being in between all of these communities. All right, number three pro is you do have kind of a unique feel in this area. And mostly I'm referring to the homes. So you do have a lot of homes that are older than 1980, about half of the homes in the area, and not many of those are similar to each other. Or maybe they're similar, but they're not the same like you would see in a typical community nowadays where you see a lot of the same house. You do have the option to go live in one of those newer communities in the Lutz area, but you do also have the rural mix, and a lot of the rural areas, like people have been in those homes for generations at times, and that gives a really unique feel to the Lutz area. All right, pro number 4, there is a lot of shopping around, primarily the Tampa premium outlets right there on the border of Highway 54 and I-275. That's right on the border of Wesley Chapel and Lutz. Those premium outlets are really nice. And then over into Wesley Chapel, you have the Wiregrass Mall. And then all along Highway 54, you have all kinds of shopping and amenities. And also just very regularly, you have plazas with, the grocery store and liquor store and barbershop and that kind of thing. Very, very frequently along all the main roads, whether that's US 41 or Collier Parkway or Highway 54, all these main roads have a lot of those plazas. Pro number 5 today, there are a lot of ways to get to Tampa. And this is kind of interesting to me because you can go over to the west to Gun Highway, and that turns into Sheldon Road, which goes into like the Citrus Park area. You can go down Dale Mabry, which goes right into the Carrollwood area, or you can go over to 275, and that goes like past Temple Terrace along the east side of the city, and then you could easily get to downtown by coming back in. And there's also a toll road in the middle there, but I don't usually recommend toll roads because I don't spend the money on toll roads, so why would I recommend that you do it? But those 4 different ways to get into Tampa give you a lot of variability if you are doing that regular commute. You might have one way you like to do in the morning and one way you like to do in the evening, or you might just know that certain times of the day, one of those ways is a little bit faster. All right, now let's get into some of the cons of the Lutz, Florida area. And some of these cons are very similar to each other, so bear with me as I explain some of the differences in the way that I see it. Con number 1, it is a pretty rural area, and if you're wanting more of a city feel or even a suburb feel, then Lutz doesn't always provide that. A lot of the area feels pretty rural and feels even like overgrown in some of the areas. Like some of the streets are really small, and then the landscaping is mature, but it's more overgrown and not necessarily well maintained like you would see in a suburb area like New Tampa or something like that. I actually tend to like this feel. I like that it's a little more wild, and it actually shows what the landscaping in Florida is like and what the landscaping in Florida is capable of. Things grow here so easily, and moving from Colorado, I was really excited that things grow here so easily. The diversity of plants is so wide, and I like that feel. But if you're looking for that more suburban, manicured sidewalks on both sides of the street kind of a feel, Lutz has it in some areas, but not everywhere. Number 2 and 3, we're gonna kind of combine. Number 2 is that the area is not very walkable. You might have a couple stores if you live in a suburb that you can get to just by walking, but in general, the area is not very walkable. And number 3 being that the area is very car dependent. So if you do live in the area, then you're gonna kind of have the feel of like every day you're getting in your car and you're going somewhere, even if you're just going to the gym or you're going to a park or you're taking your kids to school. I was actually just talking to a client. He lives down in the Miami area, and he wants to move up to Tampa, and he really wants an area that he doesn't feel like he has to get in his car every single day. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate him understanding that desire and me trying to find that and find the right area of Tampa to give him that feel. And I actually have that feel in Tarpon Springs, but Tarpon Springs might feel a little small for some people, and some areas like downtown or South Tampa might be more of what he's looking for. But that made me realize like how car dependent the Lutz area is, and that's just something, maybe you're used to that, maybe you're not, but it is kind of going on the con side for today. All right, number 4 con, the commute traffic from this area into Tampa and out of Tampa every day is pretty intense. It will add quite a bit of time to your travel and maybe even double it in certain times. And that's where that toll road might get a little more intriguing, but I think it becomes even more of a con if you have to depend on a toll road to make a decent time of getting home and getting to work. All right, and the number 5 con for the area is that it's a little far from the beach. You're gonna be about an hour away from the main beaches over in Pinellas County. If you wanna go to like Fred Howard Park over in Tarpon Springs, it'll be a little bit less than an hour, but not much. So if the beach is something you want really accessible, then this area is a little too far. But if you're, willing to just, make a day trip out of it, then it's not too bad. And that's where a lot of people are. And actually, people I talked to today, that's kind of how they were thinking of, like, well, if we're 45 minutes or an hour from the beach, like, that's close enough. That is about how far this area is. So keep that in mind if you're considering the Lutz area. All right, those are our pros and cons for the Lutz area. I'll put them right back here on the screen as I do my little outro, just to remind you of what these are. And keep in mind, this is my perspective and my opinion of the area, but also based on hearing from you guys, and just a reminder that I love to hear from you guys. So don't hesitate to reach out. My email and phone number are right there on the screen. Please reach out anytime with any real estate specific questions or needs. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our next videos. And that is all for today. So we will see you next time.